Hi, everybody. This is day 1501 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered right there on Fort Bliss, and we do not have his remains. His remains were last on Fort Bliss reported, officially reported in the Board of Inquiry and the declaration of death that we received, the paperwork, because, of course, the insurance, they all have to have that kind of information. Richard's remains were on Fort Bliss, and, we don't have his remains. Why not? Fort Bliss is a military installation. It's a huge military installation. Um, so much funding. We have $1 trillion military, and a big part of the funding is for security personnel, security cameras, security. But yet we have breaches in security everywhere we look, and I don't buy it. I think there's an established criminal network that has infiltrated our military installations, and in this case, it's Fort Bliss because Fort Bliss is and was the home of the Emergency Intake Center. If you ask what that is, I should put up some pictures. It's a huge camp where they would put the hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied um, children, migrant children, or children that were ripped from their homes, brought to this country, and then um, accountable. That means they were trafficked. And now the reports are that most of them are dead. And they're trafficked for several reasons. We know from witness testimonies it was very, very bad on Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss leadership was in charge of that. That means that they're complicit, that they are, this is Jerry Jacobitz, this is Clem Coward, this is Thomas Kane, this is Ann Ogle, and many more that, are responsible for these unaccompanied children not being cared for and being trafficked, and the child pornography. And we know that Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart, was involved in child pornography. We know that Dallas Hart and his mother, Leilani Hart, confirmed convicted criminal, long established. She was a confirmed convicted criminal before Richard was even born. Um, and Dallas's father, James Courtney Hart, a veteran, working on the VA there at Fort Bliss, in the Pueblo, for Veterans Disability Benefits Board to determine what their benefits would be. And he's not just, some random guy that got a job there, okay? His family is a very well established family, historical family in El Paso. Um, he has many, many contacts, many LLCs that for some reason he felt like he had to clear them all out. He had to sanitize his record. But, the paper trail is there, and the digital trail is there, and also witness testimonies that have come forward. And of course, so this uh, group, expanded out and expanded into the law enforcement. And what do I mean by that? I mean that Leilani Hart's family member, even Tavita Nusa, was in the Fort Bliss CID, and it expands out to that with so many conflicts of interest with CID agent Marlon Soto, with FBI supervisory director, um, Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr., who was established, his family totally established there in El Paso. And then, of course, you have Nidal Baim, the father-in-law of G3 Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in 32nd ADCOM, G3 32nd ADCOM, established in that area with connections. There's, connections with Hawaii. Okay. Um, that's where Jules Tuganon Chan is. He has the connections with Hawaii. Um, but these are an established group. They're an established criminal group. Um, and we have the evidence. We have the evidence. And how can this happen when you're a military family? You absolutely understand what this means when you have people, historically, nepotism, if you want to call it that, but historical roots in that area in such important positions. And you saw that when Jones came back, when the command sergeant major, all of these leadership, they come back and they go, oh, well, they're not new to this area. They're coming back home. And Garrett has connections in El Paso, who was Richard's four-star general. And of course, Clem Coward has connections. Um, and these connections cause conflicts of interest. And so when you have a young soldier like Richard, 18 years old, coming in from, a law-abiding family, and here he is, homeschooled. Here he is, living in Europe his whole life. This is the first time he's going to go to, really put down some roots in the United States. And he's seeing trafficking. He's seeing children being hurt. He's seeing fraud, waste, and abuse on a huge criminal level. He told us it was very bad. It was very bad. And so we know that even because he wanted to be CID, he even considered the CID bad because he told us it was very bad. So that means Tavita Nusa. That means Marlon Soto. And, so that all makes sense. We are confirming it now, 4 years later. Everything that we have put together that Richard has told us. We absolutely wanted to hear all the sides, gather all the evidence, and Richard has come out sparkling clean and correct and right, and a whistleblower. And he was retaliated against for reporting the criminal activity. And so we are exposing it. And of course, this criminal activity, just like what's going on at a national level, you see that they absolutely are dug in. But with Richard's case, since it's international, since it has to do with the Gold Star family, right? That means a lot to a lot of people. That Richard is a soldier, that he's a whistleblower soldier, that he's a distinguished honor graduate, that he was guidon bearer, that, he was promoted before his peers, meaning with waivers, early, not one time, but 3 times. 3 times he was promoted like that. And he was retaliated fiercely for blowing the whistle. And it escalated to his the orchestration, the premeditation, order to murder Richard. And there were several factors, and that is clearly shown when you layer and layer the timelines together. You can absolutely see very important things happening, like on July 14th when Yvonne Rosales beat Montoya in the runoff as district attorney. That was a huge, huge, we believe, part of why Richard was murdered. Um, and we'll explain that to you absolutely. But having Yvonne Rosales as district attorney, you can tell even, and I'm not saying she's perfect or anything, but she was absolutely looking into these cases, and they did not want the cases to move forward at all, because it was simply um, looking into, for example, with the Walmart case, what kind of bullets were being used, because we're being told that it's what really shatters the whole narrative are the bullets and the bullet casings, the brown tip bullets, the green tip bullets. And, Obama, I was looking that up after talking to you, um, confirming that Obama wanted to ban the green tip bullets because they are armor piercing. They are steel piercing, body armor piercing. They're for vehicles to go through vehicles. So we need to know if what we're hearing is true. And it's coming back that green tip bullets were found on August 3rd, 2019, in regards to the Walmart mass shooting. And, so that just really shatters the whole narrative. And, so many things shatter the narrative for that day. It's not just that, right? I mean, the evidence is overwhelming, and it only takes you, a half an hour, if that, to fully be convinced that the Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated. And of course, Richard's murder was orchestrated, premeditated. You could call it a code red. They the the fact that they could not discredit him was another huge factor. He could not be discredited. His record to this day is totally clean, sparkling clean. And he has a magnificent record for such a young man. And I'm very proud of him for that. Um, the criminal network, and I mentioned Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa and Dallas Hart and James Hart and Jesus Nieto. Um, his name is Eddie, Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr., his wife, Cynthia Hernandez, Marlon Soto Hernandez, um, and many, many more. Mario Raskin Ortiz, he's the illegal and unqualified medical examiner that makes about $450,000 a year of taxpayers' money. Um, and Jonathan Ambrose and Danae Katzen and Belen Rocha and Jules Tuganon Chan and Amber Chase and Corinne Adeline West. And there's, I can go on. Michael Ruggiero, Jay Paulin, very important. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick, Clem Coward, General Michael Xavier Garrett. There's some that we haven't mentioned to you that's in there that connects General Garrett to this criminal network. Same thing with Clem Coward. they're pretty protected because they are generals. Of course, 4-star generals are protected, even though they are absolutely betraying us with, and um, committing violations with foreign and domestic enemies. They are just the worst, and they need to be stripped. And I'm not joking with that, because they need to be stripped of our uniforms and our stars and the benefits that we have entrusted into them. They work for us, and they have failed us, and they have not only failed us, but they have been disloyal to us, um, and they have stolen from us. And and so they need to be fired, and they need to be arrested and held accountable for their crimes. And their crimes are very, very dear, uh, meaning that they have a high cost, because so many of our soldiers die because of their criminal activities, and they're absolutely part of this, very lucrative criminal trafficking network there in El Paso. And I would include Veronica Escobar in this. There's many. There's many. Um, and, our, and it gets a little much, it gets convoluted. Um, and then it's very hard for people to understand what we're trying to say. And what we're trying to say is there's a criminal network that is in cahoots with the cartel, absolutely crosses the border there, into the AG office of Chihuahua, Mexico in Juarez. Absolutely is part of the whole EPIC, the El Paso intelligence community, a part of the media. So of course Bob Moore is part of this, and Angela Kachurga, and Natasha Paloma, um, David Candelera. Uh, you know, the media is absolutely part of this, and if you've been following, you absolutely know that. The PAO. You have Nick Nofzinger, Brown Bell, Scott, and then all of a sudden, her name is Scott too. Weird, weird things, but yeah, there's a lot of crossovers here, uh, and I'm even talking about all these little government workers in there that get these little contracts, cushy contracts. And the emergency intake center had plenty of them. They took so many childcare workers out of El Paso, and onto Fort Bliss, to participate in the real evils going on. Matter of fact, we got witness testimony that the guards couldn't were not even allowed to uh, look around. They were told not to look in. Um, that things were so bad with the children on the emergency intake center. And you have Jules Chuganon Chan, right? Um, taking credit for working with that. And that just tells you that the criminal network there is absolutely uh, been there for a while. And so they have the medical, they have the disabilities, they have the contracts. They really mess with the contracts for law enforcement and for the military. And this is where Nadal Baim comes in. He's was offering bullets to law enforcement, and you have to remember, bullets to law enforcement, that would include brown tip bullets and green tip bullets. And so the very criminal network has access to the very evidence, what we're hearing, that connects, well, that blows the narrative off of the Walmart mass shooting case. and which would solve, the solving of the mass shooting case would solve Richard's case because it's the same criminal network. You see that they're trying to learn how to fly. Dallas Hart was trying to learn how to fly. I think he is flying now. Um, and so, and hundreds of thousands of children are now, um, most of them are dead. Most of them are dead. Horrible deaths sexually, um, by slave labor, um, and things that I can't really discuss on here that are just horrible. And so, thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you, and happy Labor Day. Right? We had an extra day this weekend to catch up on things. Um, on our work. We got to catch up on our work, right? Um, so when you have a case like our case, it's kind of like the case with the lost sheep. You just put everything down and you go and look. But we, with the declaration of death for Richard, we know that we were right all along, that Richard was murdered, and we now are working to get his remains, and so we can have a proper burial for him and hold those that did what they did against him accountable, because we're hearing that it was pretty brutal. It was pretty, more and more people are coming forward. And I keep saying that as a hint to those that are implicated in this case, that don't want to be implicated in this case, that they need to come forward. Um, I know that, so I'm sure Nadal Baim he's not really liked, okay, because he connects um, the Army with Bradford Bugado of the G3 32nd AdCom, Lieutenant Colonel, right? With this case, he connects the criminal network through the LLCs um, that are right there, and also by his family in the car business, and not just any car business, but with Mercedes, BMWs, I believe they do Range Rovers. So, and why is that important? Because that connects them to Richard with the Mercedes that had problems, right? And it was, going to be sold cheap. And then Richard had a Toyota, but he had told our family that, told my husband that he was going to buy this Mercedes and fix it up and sell it for profit. That's what he wanted to do. What did he think? And so, this LLC, there's not that many repair uh, garages in El Paso for a New Mexico Mercedes, um, for that level of vehicle that's in that picture. And so Nadal Baim connects those dots, also connects Mexico to Richards, makes it an international case, also connects the uh, the 32nd AdCom with Richard's case, in a bad way, in a code red way, right? Um, the orchestrating of the murder of a soldier, a whistleblower. And so the truth is so bad that, of course, they are doing whatever they can to hinder the information from getting out. So, we're going to put in those open records and see what happens. We have a lot of open records for Major General uh, Kurt Taylor. Kurt Taylor. We have a lot of open records for him. and we're going to move forward with this picture that was taken illegally from the district uh, magistrate jail office, the clerk's office there in the magistrate jails. A snapshot, a photo was taken from the screen, the government screen, which is so illegal, um, in that office, with background information and everything, because they didn't expand the entire uh, what they wanted to, it was an image of Richard, what they wanted to take. And so that's a really big deal there. And we're just going to collect more and more evidence, um, and get to the bottom of what they did, who was when, who was where, who did what. And we need full transparency in this. And that way, uh, really work hard to get Richard's remains back to us. So, since it's a weekend, uh, and I can go on and on about Nadal Baim and what has happened, transpired with all that information, with the intentional blocking of us at the very beginning and him coming in and being a great help, right? But just by confessing, just by, without Nadal Baim and that cashier, I hope, um, I hope she's going to have no worries in the future. Um, she really needs to be rewarded for what she did, and I know so much time is going by, but I hope she's patient, um, and she's definitely rewarded for what she did, because exposing Nadal Baim and the businesses behind the Dollar General store, the blue, uh, what is it, the blue um, Party Hall LLC, and then the Western Frontier Trading, and there's more. Um, that really has propelled this case out of cold case into more investigations. We have been told there are state and federal investigations going on right now, and we are slowly hearing back from them. So, because there's a lot of information that we gave, lots of information that we gave. So, and you still have to be diplomatic with everything, because politics plays a part. And that means that children have to be protected, or our community has to be protected. So we're going to, all things in good time. So thank you so much for coming on, and please share. And you can add to this list of the criminal network. Absolutely add to it. We're adding to it. And I might not call them all out because the list is very long, y'all. Um, because it gets a little overwhelming, and I want people to understand the message. And the message is that the leadership, if they are going to weaponize the very institution, the very agency that we give them, that we entrust into them, even soldiers that we entrust into them, then they need to be held accountable. They need to be stripped. They have to be relieved from that duty. And, and if they're involved in a murder or something like that, then of course they need to be charged. So thank you so much. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.